Hey everyone, Caleb with the Antique Book Collective, and today I'm getting to you guys with a little bit of a surprise video, another one of the fake first editions, and this is actually one that was brought to my attention shortly after making all the other fake first edition books in that little playlist. So this one, it is on this book right here. It's Miss Lonely Hearts. I'm sure you guys can't read it because it's really faded on this cover. But this is a book, and the copyright page says it was printed in 1933. It makes no mention of another book, like another printing, any sort of stuff like that. However, it does say something about a publisher down at the bottom. So I'm sure you guys can't read that thing about the publisher. That's all right. That's something I'll address in a few shakes. But this book, when I bought it, when I was looking it up, all these sorts of things, this book was very valuable, even with it potentially not being a first edition. I honestly doubt it is a first edition now that I've learned this thing, but with this, it still is a pretty valuable book from what I'm seeing with price comps. But everyone else, when I was selling this book, listing this book, they also believed that this exact book, well, not this exact one, but books just like this one, same printing, were also first editions, because it said nothing about it being a reprinting. It said nothing about it being a another publisher. It doesn't say anything that would lead you to believe otherwise. Every book will say, oh, this is a reprinting from 1936, originally published 1933, something like that. So this particular book, I said on my listing, yeah, this is a first edition. I believed it was. I've had it listed for a while now. It's actually been sitting on my store for a little over a year, according to my little note sheet I have right here. So a quick aside, so my note sheets that I write on all of my different books, so I like to write what the book is, so I'll write like the year and the title. And the reason why I do the year and the title, and sometimes even the author, depending on the book, the reason why I do that is that's what I have on my listing, so then when I sell that book, I can look for the sticky note as well, rather than like open the book up, confirm everything. I just write it on the sticky note. I also write the price that I want to sell it for, the price that I bought it for, and what box I put it in, how much that weighs, and the day that I listed it. That way I can see how old my inventory is. I can see how much I said it weighed, what box I put it in. All that just streamlines how fast I can do things when I am picking and packing and shipping off the books. So that's a total aside, has nothing to do with this, but I just thought it'd be important because that's something that could definitely help your guys' business model and move things along a little faster for you if you guys haven't figured out exactly how you like doing it yet. But with all that said, back to the book. That's what this video is about. But this book, I actually got an email on eBay, and I got a little message, and it said, hey, so this book is not actually first edition. And I got this really nice message. I'm not going to show you guys who it's from and all that sort of stuff, but it's from someone who, according to their name, they have their own bookstore. They don't have an eBay bookstore. They have, it looks like a brick and mortar bookstore, and they buy books for their brick and mortar store off of eBay, and that's the account. It's got a ton of reviews. It's a top-rated buyer. So these are some really good things for you to know that this person's reputable. And it says, hey, just an FYI, this book is a edition made by this one publisher. It had to have been published this 1 year because that's when this publisher did this particular book. And this and this and this. So something interesting that they said, though, in this email was that this book here had to have been published in 1951. That's when this publisher allegedly did this. However, the copyright date still says 1933. And I went out and I was like, okay, so that's what this person said, and I didn't want to respond and be a jerk. So I wanted to find a few things out. I mean, it's eBay, so everyone's used to waiting a couple of days anyway. So I was doing my research, and sure enough, they were correct about this publisher. So this publisher, guys, it says New Directions books are published by James Laughlin. So New Directions, James Laughlin, that's two things that you guys sort of need to know for this particular book. So both these are basically just the guys who published it. Nothing too exciting right there, but what the excitement comes in with is when you Google New Directions publisher age, anything along those lines, it'll tell you outright that the publisher was founded in 1936 and then it was incorporated in 1964. So the incorporated thing isn't nearly as important. When it was founded is a little more important because you don't print books before you're founded. You know, it has to be after that. So obviously this book has to be after 1936. And potentially this book could be from 1951 because that's what this person said. They wouldn't have said it unless they had pretty good evidence of it, because this person, clearly they've bought a couple books. I mean, they have over 10,000 ratings, so clearly they've bought a couple books on eBay. Just saying. So I mean, obviously this person knows what they were talking about, and I was like, oh, that's really interesting. So I got this book and I was like, I thought for sure I saw something that said it was before 1950 something, and I opened it up, and the very first thing I just saw, I opened up the cover, because the cover like basically falls open on this one. It's rather loose. The rest of the book's pages are tight binding, but the cover flops loose on its own. But I saw something that was really quite interesting. And if you see right there next to my middle finger, I hope that comes through. It says G.C. Edyen, I'm assuming that's their last name. And it says June of apostrophe 47, which means 1947. They got it in June 1947. If you guys are following along, 1947 comes before 1951. And that's something that's really interesting about this book is, okay, so either this book is older than 1951, or someone bought this in 1951 and backdated it 47, which is totally possible. So for me as a book person, I'm able to, since I've been doing this with books for so long, I've gotten to the point that I can sort of like look at someone's handwriting and be like, okay, that's roughly from this decade or this decade or this decade. I know it's a really weird thing to figure out, and I can also sometimes figure out how old someone is off of their handwriting. Again, really weird. It's just something you eventually learn. I think it'd be really fun to actually like hit up a handwriting expert on this. But for me, like, I look at this handwriting, it's like, this doesn't look like after 1950s handwriting. This looks like someone who was definitely alive and went to school before the 50s. So it's like, I don't know, this definitely could be from 47 or potentially older than that. So I thought that was really interesting. So that sort of makes me wonder, I wonder if this book was printed in 1936 or 37, anywhere from like 1936 to 1947 basically, because the publisher, again, was founded in 1936, so it has to be after that, because if it's from this publisher, that's when it had to be. And quick thing though, I'm sure you guys might be wondering this, so the James Laughlin guy that I mentioned that ran the publisher, he is not the author of this book. So this author of this book is called Robert M. Coates, Coates. Coates, I'm gonna assume that's right. I'm sure it's not though. But that's who wrote this book. So this James Laughlin guy is the guy who ran this publisher, and he's definitely a different guy. So that's something that I think is really interesting. So with that said though, I don't want to leave a book. I don't want to leave this and say that's a first edition and basically lie to anyone. Yes, I thought it was correct, so it's not really a lie when I did it. It wasn't truth, but it wasn't really a lie because I wasn't going out to deceive anyone. But since this person brought this to my attention, since I was able to independently verify this, I was like, oh, poo, I'm going to change my listing. So with that said, I'm going to show you guys 2 screenshots, actually 3. So actually, let's see. Yeah, I'm going to show you guys 3 screenshots. So this first one is just of the book itself on my listing, and I'm going to obviously blur out, obviously I blurred out my name and all that sort of stuff because I didn't want you guys seeing it, because I want to keep my store private because of all the internet trolls out there that will see my YouTube videos and try to ruin me. I've had that happen with so many different things. I know plenty of people that have had it happen, so forgive me for that, but it's not going to change. This next screenshot is the description that I had on this original one. So I'm actually going to scoot over to the side a little bit. This way you guys can read that as I'm talking. But basically I went through the description of this book when I first had this book, when I first listed this book. And I said everything that I knew about this book in the very beginning. I'm going to let you guys read that if you want to. You can pause the video and read that. So I'm just going to pause a little bit so you guys can read it if you want. There's all the pause that you guys get though. And that's what I had as my listing. And then after I got that email, I had this other description that I just put up. So this new description is the one that I now have on this listing. So I'm still saying the condition of the book. I'm still saying everything about the pages. I'm saying about how some of the pages are ripped. I'm talking about all the different things. I'm talking about the photo. I'm talking about how I photographed the name and the date on these books. On this book. And I also mentioned the thing about 1947. I mentioned the weird thing about the publisher. And I mentioned all that. something else that I did is I removed the first edition tag from the title because, again, this is not really a first edition anymore at this point. So that's all you guys get to see of that. I moved back. Now I'm in the middle again. So I thought this was really interesting, though, guys. So I really wanted to have that paragraph in the middle-ish about saying the edition of this book was made by New Directions and is not a true first edition. So I'm just reading you this paragraph in case you guys didn't read it. And that company didn't exist until 1936. However, the note on the inside front cover shows that this book was gifted in 1947. I am assuming a bit that it was gifted in 1947 because a lot of people that gifted books and wrote names in it and dates in it, normally those were gifted books, like someone gave it to you as a present. That wasn't always the case, but I'm sort of assuming it's the case in this one. But back to this, assuming the book was gifted in 1947, as you can see in the photos, is something that I say. I always say, as you can see in the photos, because I photograph all these different things that I mention. That way, this person can independently look at these things themselves. So back to the description. As such, this is still a very early edition of the book, and that's how I finish off that little paragraph. And honestly, that's all the information that I really feel is really needed on this particular book, because if a buyer is really interested in it, they can look up the thing about the New Directions publisher. They can see that, oh, it's 1936 to 1964-ish, like between founding and incorporation. I'm not sure if this company's still in business. The name is a little familiar, so I wouldn't be surprised if they are, but that is something that's really interesting. It could be something that makes or breaks the deal for me with a buyer, but it's something cool about this book, and it's something that you guys need to watch out for. I know this has been a little bit long of a video, but all of this was a way of me telling you guys that when you are listing your books, when you are selling your books, you're not going to be right 100% of the time. You're going to say something's a first edition, and you're going to have someone emailing you and be like, this isn't a first edition because of such and such a reason. And the reason why this is really cool and really important is because the market is not always correct on eBay. When I listed this book, everyone was saying this book was a first edition. According to everything the book says, it's easy to believe it's a first edition. However, you have to do a little bit more research, a little more digging. You have to find out stuff about the publisher, where the publishers are newer than when the book says it was published. I've had a couple of books over all the years that I've been doing this. So I've been doing this a little over 5 years, I guess. I've actually looked at the numbers now. Little over 5 years I've been doing this business. I've collected books much longer than that. But in that entire time, I've sold thousands upon thousands of books. As I think I said in another video, I think I've gone over 10,000 of books, like several times over probably, but just being conservative. And I thought it was really interesting, though, because I've only 5 books that are saying that it's published 1 year and it's actually published later because the publisher itself is younger than the book. So that's just something that I thought was really interesting, something you guys should watch out for. Yeah, I'm not saying that you guys are going to be right 100% of the time. I'm not saying that you guys should check it all the time. Like, personally, if you want to be 100% right 100% of the time, yeah, research the poop out of every single iota of every single book. Like, you could carbon date the book on top of that if you want to be correct all the time and be like, oh, according to this, da-da-da-da-da. I mean, carbon dating is probably not the best way because it's been terrible so many times on so many different things, but you know what I'm getting at. Like, there are a lot of ways to be like, oh, this book is this old, and yeah, you're not going to be right 100% of the time. There are going to be issues with that. Just be sure that you update listings that you know are wrong. Take off books that you just aren't sure about. Don't list books that you're not sure about, like if those are the two things that you think, or just tell the buyer outright you don't know. Like for me, in my description that I showed you guys a little bit ago and that I read about part of to you guys, I told the buyer straight up, yeah, I don't know about this book. It says this, these are the other facts, here's what I know. That's something that I always do, is I tell the buyers everything that I know about the book. And personally, that's why I don't not sell a book. Of course, you guys might feel a little sketched out about that, so you might not want to sell the book. For me, I personally like listing all the books that I can find that are cool, that are worth money, all that sort of stuff. But I always make sure that I am telling the buyer everything that I know, everything that might be important to them, because at the end of the day, they're the one buying this book. I mean, yeah, it's a cool little book, it's a cute little book, and it's pretty nice, but it's not a real first edition potentially. Of course, maybe it is, maybe it's not. I don't fully know. I mean, I don't know how a publisher would publish a book before they actually went into business, but that's something that is really interesting about all these books. And at the end of the day, though, guys, it's up to you how you run your business, what you choose to do. I mean, for me, I always am going to be selling all these cool books. I mean, I get things wrong. I'm not the smartest person in the world. I'm not the smartest bookseller in the universe. I don't know everything. But I mean, I find these books. I like selling these books. I like finding all these different treasures. And sometimes you will get a book that says it's from 1933, but the publisher is not from 1933. That's just something that happens. It's one of the risks of doing business. And potentially, if someone bought this, they could have gotten mad at me. They could have said I was selling an item not as described. They could have been like, I'm lying to them. They could have reported me. They could have cost me my store. I don't believe eBay would do that to me because I don't have any complaints currently on my store. I've been doing it a couple of years. Whenever I do any customer support things, they're like, oh, we see you've been doing this and this and this. Thank you and thank you and thank you. And it's like, it's a cute little touch. I think they do it to everyone, but it's fun for me. It's like, oh, wow, they actually care. It's on my file. But it's something that is a real risk. There are chances that you are going to be hit up for fraud, even though you're not outwardly committing fraud. So that's just something that I really wanted to share with you guys in this particular video. I know this video, again, I know it ran a little bit long, but it was really important that I addressed everything I did in this book, on this video about this book, except for maybe that little spiel about the sticky notes, but I thought that was cool too. So with all that said though, guys, I'd love for you guys to subscribe. I'd love for you guys to check out one of my other videos. I'll see you guys in the next one, and thanks for watching.